Tonight's topic is contemplation. You're all contemplators, but you may not know it. So I'm here to remind you, and we'll talk about it too. As you well know, if you're going to ask a question about something, it has to be evident. It's got to be within your purview, your horizon. You got to observe it. We're all seers, and that's the heart of contemplation. We're born contemplators, and some of us take to it more than others. It's a power within. Can't be removed if we're human. It flows from our soul, or spirit, as you will. It enables us to reflect. It enables us to ponder, to probe, to be astonished. Sometimes you can walk out into nature and all of a sudden you're caught by its beauty. That's the experience of contemplation. You're touched by someone who does something for you. Out of the blue, maybe. Unexpected. She did that. You're moved. That's contemplation. So contemplation is an instant recognition of truth and beauty together. And that's why Aristotle said the beginning of philosophy is an act of wonder. Wow. And you're just impelled. I want to go further. What's it all about? In the mind, in the most gentle way, because your mind doesn't hurt anything when it knows it. When I see you, you see me. There's an immediate recognition. That's contemplation. And there's a feeling, of attraction. And that's the consequence. Because in the act of contemplation, we want to be drawn to that which we contemplate. Do you recall, I think it was a week ago, in the IHT Weekly, we talked about the man who was playing the violin in the metro? Does anybody here not know that story? I just want to briefly go over it, if you don't. Oh, good, you all read. Yes, sir, okay. This is an actual event, sir. It happened in the metro, was it Washington, D.C. or New York? This is, all of a sudden, a man opened up a little violin case and he began to play Brahms and some other classical pieces. He did it at rush hour. Talk about competition, huh? And this is a major metro station, so hundreds of people walking by. He continued to play. Most people didn't even notice. Most people probably didn't even hear him because their mind's so busy. And he cited the interesting fact that the only ones that really paid attention were children. They were curious about him. Curiosity, the beginning of contemplation. And he said invariably every mother kept dragging the kid away. Come on, we got to go. And he just kept wanting to look at this man playing the violin. Some people threw money down but never bothered to stop. Hardly looked up at him, just threw it in. Apparently he cleared up $32 in the first 40. I don't know if you can, at least he made lunch. One man stayed for a moment or two, And then, oh, I gotta go on. And here was one of the world famous violinists who a night or two before in the Boston Orchestra House, they would charge $100 a ticket just to hear this man. And they did it as an experiment because it was not so much to embarrass the people or, in any way indirectly scold them for not listening. No. It was to point out that oftentimes we're not ready to see what's really there in the most unexpected places. Who'd expect to find a world famous violinist playing free in a metro station, huh? But yet that's where it happens. Now, you sometimes have moments when you get an idea. Or suddenly you think of someone. Why is that person on my mind? Sometimes there's a follow-up, a phone call, a letter, or a day or two later you bump into the person. I was just thinking about you. Yeah. See, the act of contemplation has no impediments unless we smother it, unless we distract it, like the people down in the metro. They may have heard a glimmer of that violin, but they didn't stay with it. And so they lost in that sense. And I guess the moral of the story is, how much do we miss by rushing through life and not giving ourselves an opportunity to allow that power of contemplation to exert itself for us? It has only one purpose: to enrich us. That's its only purpose. It cannot stop. You know we have a bird feeder out there. And sometimes I like just to gaze and observe the birds and chuckle how they sort of bounce against each other. Get out of my way, I want that food, Because see, in contemplation, you don't interfere with the reality. You're not trying to create anything. You're trying to absorb what's there. And there's a kind of swelling in you then. There's an increase, an augmentation, if you will. And you feel better. Especially if it's beautiful. And even if it's a little more prosaic, like you're sensing how busy is this road going to be, this traffic and so on. I got to look because I got to plan things. I may have to pick somebody up later. That's okay too. It's not as profound perhaps as watching the stars at night, but it aids you, doesn't it? It gives you information minimally, if not enrichment. In one sense, your soul's nature is contemplation. And the reason I say that is because in one of Swami Rama's essays, he describes what is going to happen to you when you leave your body. You're going into a state of contemplation. Yeah. He says that's what is the goal of samadhi. You think samadhi is your goal? Yes, but then there's a goal of samadhi. Didn't know that, did you? And let me read it to you. This is a glorious state of mind in which the mind is absorbed in the contemplation of infinity. All the senses are withdrawn from the organs that are their normal residence. They're silenced. The mind becomes quiet, still. There are no thoughts to disturb it. or entice it. And in that state of glory of the self, a bliss dawns. Ooh. Upon the horizon, as it were. And that's where you will be. Your final, absolute act is an act of contemplation. And what do you have in infinity? Everything. Every truth you want to know, every experience you want to grasp, it's all there. And you know it instantly because you are united to it. You know your hand, your ear, your leg, because you're united to it. They're yours. In a much more profound way. All reality now is united to you in the awareness of your contemplation. But you need to get prepared for it, gang. Otherwise it'll overwhelm you a little bit. Swami used to say, some people used to say, oh Swamiji, please, make me enlightened. Touch me, as they say, Shaktipat and all that. You look at him. You sure you can handle it? That's the point. Sometimes truth is so rich, so intense, so vast, that it just scares the pants off you. You can't handle it. I know that sounds strange, but you have to prepare for the contemplation that's awaiting you. And how do you do that? In the most prosaic, down-to-earth, common sense way. You have to lose the tendency towards covetousness. You must not continually indulge your taste to covet reality. Now you have another word for it, which I don't particularly think really conveys it. It's called attachment. Because it's too bleak, it's too empty of a word. You covet. That tells you a lot more. There's something magical that almost happens. That does happen, does happen. And each of you got to experience yourself in your own way. I will give you some general descriptions of what occurs. You're walking down the street one day and you think, oh, I'm going to really get in there and consume this. And all of a sudden you say, wait a minute. I don't really need that. And you release. That's how you start. What is happening here? There's a sort of a lightening up, if you will, a letting go. Actually, a purity is occurring now. You're seeing life without trying to grab it. And saying, mine. I want this. You're breaking free of the tendency to covet things and bring them into you. It belongs to me. Because when you allow that to occur in your life, there's a sense of saying, I am my property. And how dare you scratch or misuse my property? You're offending me. And that's why people take offense. Through the extension out to something outside themselves. And what you're doing is you're completely ignoring the power of contemplation, because it can't operate in that kind of a mentality. Now, meditation prepares you for contemplation. Yep. Because the principal shedding that goes on in meditation is the connection to our thoughts and feelings, as though they were imperative for our existence. No thought is. Because no thought can even begin to measure up to your existence as a knower, as a lover. And so the act of meditation opens up, loosens up our holding on to things. It's not saying you shouldn't occasionally hold on or use. No, that's not what's happening. It's the tendency to assume that's the only way to be. That's what has to be relinquished. You can't force it. No one can impose it on you. You have to come to that realization. And that's why this path is a tough path. No one can do it for you. No preacher, candlestick maker, anybody. You have to come to it and see that that's the way to be. And why would you want to be that way? Because it frees you up. So meditation primes you, gets you ready to widen your purview, your outlook, if you will, on life itself, so that you can appreciate things but not necessarily have to covet them. So that you can use what you already own and possess, which is yours, fine, but you're not frantically involved with them as if somehow your whole existence depends upon their preservation. Because you know it doesn't. There's nothing we possess that can't be broken. The American way of life, everything gets obsolete after a while. And there's no disheartening as an emotional response to that. That's just simply recognizing reality for what it is, and that takes an act of contemplation. Because we want to somehow extend, we want to somehow, it's got to continue. Then it doesn't, and we go, oh, we feel so forlorn, sorrowful. That's what we want to outgrow, slowly. And it allows you now to become a little more nimble with life. You're not so upset when things don't always turn out the way you expect them. Hey. You don't sit there and blame yourself. No, come on. You get past all that. You recognize things. That recognition, that acknowledgement of reality for what it is what preserves your freedom. And you have to work at that. It takes a while. Because somehow you're confused to think that somehow if I don't have this, I'm going to suffer. I'm going to feel pain. And you may, but you're the cause of it. Not that thing out there. There's no way that it can do it. Unless it falls on your toe. But that's not what we're talking about. So meditation loosens you up from things that you think are causing you a lot of pain. And you're seeing through that. And again, you must do it. No one can talk you into it. Oh, they can help, but you've really got to come to that inner insight. Again, we come back to seeing all the time. Even in the Christian tradition, the highest act is the beatific vision, the blessed vision, the vision that blesses you with immortality. It's akin, but not exactly, like samadhi. So in all your traditions, there's a recognition of the importance of the act of seeing, and seeing is its most brilliant when we consider it as an act of contemplation. Now, I love to tell this and retell this story. That marvelous woman called Barbara McClintock, the biologist, fell in love with nature, was ignored for the most part by her own colleagues. Why? Because her papers were too good. They were better than most men. And she had a secret weapon. She never hid it, but nobody bothered to ask her about it. Contemplation. How'd she do that? She was fascinated with corn, growth of corn, especially hybrid corn, coloration, and so on. So she made that a special task, to explore the dynamics of how it occurred. She wasn't satisfied with the conventional answer. She didn't feel it was quite adequate. So how can I go beyond the conventional methods with which I already know, and I'm quite skilled with? She'd win grant after grant, no problem. So she tried something else. She would walk into the cornfields, and she'd sit down. And she would gaze upon a cornstalk. She made the ears of corn the object of her contemplation. Now this is hard to believe. But from her biographer, Evelyn Fox, who's a wonderful writer, she could, after a while, somehow penetrate beyond the covering of the corn and see the inner dynamics of how that corn grew. It was as though her eyes were X-raying the corn ears. And then she'd rush back to her laboratory and put the kernels under the microscope and say, yep, that's what I saw. So a kind of a confirmation from her normal vision, which aligned itself with her contemplation. And she wrote papers now based upon that revelation of that reality. And most of them were ignored or rejected. Because those who read them said, this can't happen. Reminds me of somebody else, this can't happen. And one day in the early 1980s, a woman walked down the halls of Norway, or Oslo, excuse me, and received the Nobel Prize. Guess who it was? For her work in hybridization of corn. And all the experts and the colleagues came up to her and said, you were right, Barb. We were wrong. And when she retired, Evelyn, her biographer, asked her, what are you going to do now? She said, I want to study this meditation and this contemplation. I want to see what else I can discover. Does this mean we can't be active people? No, not at all. But even in our activity, we require and we depend upon many, many acts of contemplation to be skilled, to be effective, to produce what we expect from our intentionality. But when it's all said and done, you will one day return to the act of contemplation, which is the core of your essence. And as you release, as you begin to realize, I don't need so much in my life, I don't need this, I can appreciate it, I can enjoy it, but I don't have to keep chasing things, like so many of us do. I don't have to have the latest installment of something. Why? Well, what's the point, really? And as we begin to release that kind of craving, that coveting of reality, there's an ease that slips inside of us now. We can walk among things, and even the very thought of trying to possess it won't come up so much anymore. You will be surprised by that. That's coming. And you will be delighted, and you'll seek your delight in simply the act of contemplating, of knowing reality, of of walking through the woods, of playing with your grandchild, of realizing the kindnesses of others in your life. Those will be your objects of contemplation now. That'll be your being after a while. Huh? I used to observe him with things. He enjoyed everything that came into his path for what it was. If we had a pizza, we enjoyed the pizza. If it was a star-filled night, he'd grab the dog and say, "Hey, Just, come on." He'd go out and he'd walk and he'd look at the stars. If someone gave him a French watch, thank him, he might wear it a couple of days and then look for somebody to give it to. He didn't need it. He wasn't trying to disparage the gift, no, because it's already his now. He can do what he wants with it. And he'd find somebody who may needed a watch. I have one of his. I don't know why he gave it to him, but he gave it to me. A Swiss watch. I saw him accept reality and then pass it on to somebody. He wasn't trying to in any way say, "Oh, look at me, I don't need any." No, 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 no. It wasn't that he couldn't appreciate what he was given. He did. But he didn't have to covet it. And if someone came along that was, "Oh, the person needs this," and he didn't need for you to say thank you. He took the joy in helping you fulfill your path with that item. And that's the way he operated. He one day asked me, "What do you want, Justin?" He was leaving. I could have asked for anything and I would have gotten it. I could have had asked for $1 million. He would have seen that I got it. I know him. And I said, "All I want is to be near you." "No, no, come on, come on." No, I said, "No, that's all I want. You keep us near you. That's all we." "Okay." And look at me now. Don't be afraid if things don't always work out the way they want. You expect them to. Don't be afraid if sometimes you lose things. We don't. Don't always think it has to be a spiritual thing. No, 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 no. Come on, just be realistic. Maybe you forgot. Maybe something was overdue or something. The point is, use matter, respect matter, enjoy matter, but don't get too close to it. Don't let it ensnare you. Don't somehow think that your resume, your identity requires this man. No, it doesn't. Yes, we need money. We need comfort. That's normal. That's fine. Our tradition does not in any way disparage matter. On the contrary, we glory in it because it's there to assist us to get where we want. We need to be healthy. We need to have good food. We need to be warm and comfortable. We should be in nice surroundings. Why not? There's no limit. And when you approach it that way, you don't get ensnared. You protect your ability to contemplate, to enjoy the ability to gaze and be enriched. And that's why truth is beauty and beauty is truth. If you want to do a little experiment, just have a little fun and test your contemplative ability, because it can increase. Pick a natural object, a tree, a flower, even frost on a window pane. Pause and gaze at it. Don't have this, what am I looking for? No, no, no. That's a busy mind. No, no, no. You're not trying to impose. You're trying to absorb. Let the reality, as it were, speak to you. The way the corn spoke to Barbara. Be patient. Notice the features of the frost. Notice how it doesn't repeat itself in quite the same way. Notice the geometrical patterns, the thickness, if you will, and where it ends. I'm just making a very everyday, almost perfunctory suggestion here, huh? But the point is, you get the idea. You can do it with a living being, huh? Watch a child, watch your dog, watch your pet. Just observe. In that gaze, you will be given that which is there. Because it is a natural law of cognition. That which you make an object of your gaze must release its intelligibility, its truth, its beauty to you. Because that's the way matter is made. It's there to assist you on your journey. So we're born contemplators. Our goal is the act of contemplation. And as we walk towards it, we'll understand it more. And when we cross finally over into transcendence, it'll be a continuation of what we've already started. It's not a break, it's a continuation, but in the most vast way, beyond imagination. But you're already preparing yourself for it. So it's in our hands. You don't have to take a course, you don't have to eat special food. It's there. It's innate. It's inherent. We are meant to be contemplators. And so our meditation is what's going to prepare us more than anything else. That's what accelerates our growth, the act of meditation. Because it frees us from the objects that are impairing our vision. It's shattering, weakening the bonds that keep us from seeing what's really there, instead of always imposing our ideas, our judgments. This is the way I do it. Okay, there could be other ways too. Ooh. So, the act of contemplation, because you're making contact with reality, reality is now going to expand your power. Mm-hmm. It's not you so much, it's the reality, because it's so rich. It has depths that you couldn't have imagined until you came into contact with it. I remember the first time up in Duluth I saw the Aurora Borealis. Oh my God. I thought it was alive. The way it moved and danced and the colorations. I was enthralled for a half hour. Woof. And I'm sure you can cite even more profound stories than that, huh? And one day, you realize that the highest object of contemplation that will enable you to grow faster and faster is to realize that the people in your life are the greatest contributors to your growth. You'll see them as the object of contemplation. Their beauty, their fidelity, their strength. And the reason you resonate so much with that is they're really reflecting you. Aristotle said there were three kinds of love. Love of pleasure. He didn't say they were bad, he just said there were three kinds. And all that entails, hey, we like to eat, we like our sensuality, our sexuality, our enjoyment. Why not? One kind of love. Second kind was utility. We use things as we want to achieve. We can even use people. We can exploit them that way. That's utility. But he said the highest love is when we meet a kindred spirit. It reminds us of what we are, at our essence. In a sense, we're seeing ourselves. You can't help but love yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. And that one day, we come to the realization in the act of contemplation, we're all united. But we have to realize that first. We have to experience that. It's not an intellectual concept. It's not just a feeling. It's much more than that. And that's why friendship is so important on the path to enlightenment. We truly help each other. Because we're not complete yet. Oh, and put it this way, we're not finished yet. We're complete, but not finished. And so that gives us an enormous encouragement to know those who are walking in the same direction. So, let's get back to meditation and get prepared for contemplation.